Hi everyone, I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about my syllabus for BBE 1005, which is a meets with course with BBE 5000 Multicultural Education in Urban America. So this is my syllabus, and part of the purpose is to kind of talk through the developing aspect of the constellation framework. So I just kind of want to show you how my syllabus is organized and some of the ways that I've built in the developing aspect of the constellation. Um, so of course, literature is really important, and the multicultural education course, we use the Nieto and Bode textbooks, which is affirming diversity, the social political context of multicultural education, as well as Joel Spring, Deculturalization and the Struggle for Equality, A Brief History of Dominated Cultures in the United States. And I just want to note, these two textbooks are also written by people of color, and I think that that's something really important to consider when you're looking at your course materials as well. Diverse perspectives written by people from those communities themselves. So there's a variety of learning outcomes. Of course, they're aligned with state standards. I'm not going to go over those. I'm just going to kind of hop to um, the um, the course activities and the things that we do took over the developing aspects. So we look at a variety of different concepts. We have reaction papers that we write on different topics. Like we look at, there's a video website promoted by the, oh gosh, I can't think of, probably think of it in a second, but it's called Race, Are We So Different? And it's just a kind of an introduction to race as a social concept. Um, and so they write about that and its relationship to the field of teaching and learning, particularly with regards to the classroom. I don't judge what they write. I just give them a space to kind of journal their thoughts. And it gives me an opportunity to see where they're at and kind of build my course from there. So the first reaction paper is on that website, Race, Are We So Different? The second reaction paper is on We Are Still Here and an Indian Father's Plea. Um, and I think it's really important when talking about Native people that we do not just talk about them in the historical past, because some people, it leads them to believe that um, Native Americans are extinct. I've actually heard people say that because we don't present any contemporary information about their, you know, what folks are doing today and how they're still, contributing to the landscape of our, um, our world. So that is a reaction paper to kind of introduce people to Native American history and philosophy and struggles with regards to the field of education. So the third is on microaggressions, and I just have a series of videos that I assign to kind of give them a sense of microaggressions, macroaggressions, and how will they become manifested in the classroom. And that's their third reaction paper. The fourth one is on life after hate. I found this website. It's about recovering people who were in hate groups, and they have a lot of videos on there. That are from people themselves who are in recovery. And they talk a lot about what led them to become a member of a hate group. And it's really a good opportunity for us to kind of think through, how a lack of belonging and, not addressing certain things in the classroom can really lead people into scary, life pathways. And so we also talk about some other important things such as white fragility and is it possible for people of color to forgive? Like what, we see these stories, we hear what led people to these groups, and how does that impact people who who have been attacked by these groups and killed. And so it's these are really intense conversations, and I think they're really important to have with teachers. We often talk about them in terms of our our blind spots, that we walk into the classroom with a lot of blind spots. And so these things help us, exposure to diverse perspectives and ways of understanding the world, and having these kinds of conversations where we have a safe space to think through our own beliefs and our own biases and our own assumptions, hear each other's stories and reactions, is an opportunity for us to, um, you know, uh, be more present in the classroom and to not shy away from, bullying and other challenging situations when they occur. And it also helps us to be better teachers and to help make the invisible more visible to us. And so I'm going to jump. I also have a midterm presentation that students do around a variety of different cultural and linguistic and identity communities. And then the final self-study is also a part of that. So this is kind of the layout of the activities. Week one, we go over the course, and it's an intro to teacher dispositions as well. And then I introduce the textbook, understanding the social political context of schooling. And I do that, like I go through history and exploring the colonial history of education and its connections to land and gentrification, and the purpose of multicultural education, as a movement towards reform, school reform, of course, but we also talk about it more largely. And then we also go over the reaction paper, race, are we so different? And I'll look at structural inequities. I introduce the constellation framework and the relationship between culture, identity, and power. Then the following week, we go over Netu and Bode chapter 3, which is racism, discrimination, and expectations of student achievement. We talk about codes of power, hegemony, marginalization, and assimilation. Of course, we talk about the Native reaction paper, We Are Still Here, and an Indian Father's Plea. That paper talks a lot about inappropriate referrals to special education. So that becomes a topic for that day as well. And how, people of color are often overrepresented in special education. There's over referrals for those communities. And then chapter 4, structural and organizational issues in the classroom and schools. We talk about inequities and injustices in educational settings, and how power and privilege manifests itself. We look at the website microaggressions as a way to kind of, scaffold those conversations and macroaggressions as well. And then the next week, we look at Netu and Bode chapter 5, which is about culture, identity, and learning. We talk about melting pot theory, the salad bowl theories, and deculturalization and linguistic erasure, as well as how identity becomes abnormalized in our classrooms and in society. The reaction paper 4, Life After Hate, we talk about potential symptoms and solutions and how things are very complex. We talk about white fragility again, and is forgiveness possible? Like, all the different feelings and emotions that come up for people around these kinds of topics, especially for people of color. Then the next week, we look at chapter 6, which is linguistic diversity in the United States in classrooms, and I go over some content with regards to multiple ontological frameworks around language and culture, and how those are really important to recognize in the classroom. And then our presentations start. Our first week of presentations, we have 2 groups that present. One group presents on Native American history, civil rights movements, and where we are now for that community. And then the same thing for Black history, civil rights movements, and where we are now. I also do a note about terminology and connections to identity erasure, that many of these terms erase all of the different tribes and nations that are within these groups. And the same thing for the African American community. And how movement of peoples has really complicated how we understand ourselves today. The next week, we go over Latinx and Asian American history, civil rights movements, and where we are now. The next week, we do Middle Eastern history movements and where we are now, as well as education for special needs community, civil rights movements for that community, and where we are now. And then we do um, the next two groups present the following week, which is the LGBTQ community, history, civil rights movements, and where we are now, bilingual ed, history, civil rights movements, and where we are now. And then we wrap up with Nieto and Bode looking at understanding student learning and school achievement, and then learning from students themselves. We have a final project, the self-study, which really asks students to do interviews of their family members to get a sense of what biases, what power dynamics, what kind of privilege or marginalization may exist in their families and their families' history of education and what they remember. It's a great opportunity to touch base with elders from their own backgrounds and really think about their own histories and how they came to be who they are today, and how that influences how they understand teaching and learning, and how they work with others, with folks in the classroom from diverse communities. And then we just kind of do some wrap up work, as well as give them time to talk with each other and to look at what they're doing in terms of their self studies. Okay, that's it. I hope that's super helpful, and we'll keep moving toward the next aspect of the constellation framework, and video sharing with that as well. Take care.